I'll read a paragraph from the book, the preface of the book, which sort of tells, the emotional setting when Amolji began to write this book. The act of excavating one's own life and writing about it feels like an utterly undesirable enterprise. It feels as though I am holding an enormous sack in my hand, a sack that keeps growing larger and larger like Easter dough, fermenting and distending shapelessly. Because of it being filled to the brim with ceaseless stream of thoughts and ideas, countless events, heaps of people, familiar faces, hazy images, the uproar of emotions, good and bad taste, smells, loads of sorrow, pain, grief, and so much more that just doesn't seem to end. It's inescapable that I will cram into this sack details such as our cat purring, gnawing away at my earlobes, or the expectedly unique taste of every single pani puri I have had over the decades, or the sudden fear that grips me every time the curtain rises with that grinding sound in the theater, or the way my face droops like a Modigliani portrait each time I look into the mirror. How much and what all should I pack into the sack? Amolji, can you just elaborate on this?
Before I do, talking we were talking about the titles.
Title.
I must read out a small blurb about the title Viewfinder. I, who had always stood tall, unexpectedly found myself kneeling at his feet. With great affection, Rishida embraced me, softly ran his fingers through my hair, and hurried off to his bedroom. When he returned, he had a director's viewfinder in his hand. Keep it with you, he said, and not wanting me to see his brimming eyes, quickly retreated inside. How can I ever repay that debt? Before Rishida began work on his first film, Musafir, Bimalda, that is Bimal Roy, had given him this viewfinder. Like an iconic vocalist nearing the twilight of his life, entrusts the hollowed melodies of his heritage to the loyal protégé. That act of handing over something precious illustrates the depth of the giver's love and trust, the recipient's worthiness, and the legacy's immeasurable value, symbolizing a sacred bond between the one who bequeaths and the one who receives. In our time, when the directors and the cinematographers did not have even monitors to preview a shot, the viewfinder was used to determine the crucial dimensions of the frame and to decide things like the lens required for the camera and the angle from which to shoot, etc., etc. How many frames must have been visualized through this device? I am sharing with you the distilled memories of my 80-year odyssey framed through this very viewfinder.
So Viewfinder, as Amolji has told, is a device that is used to compose a frame. So we will dwell into the book Viewfinder to find out how Amolji has composed his life or his life has been composed, both ways, okay? Because certain things have happened in his life which were accidents, happy accidents. So when I read the book Amolji, I found that most of the influences that you have mentioned start off from JJ School of Art, majority of them. Before that, were there any influences before that?
Quite a few. The first very influence, which I have mentioned in the book, was my elder sister, Nilantai, she shaped me, my thinking, my reading, my awareness of aesthetics, even the how to eat with knife and fork was taught by Nilantai. So very little, every little thing, it was Nilantai who influenced me and what I went on to become. Then there were also one big influence which I remember was a Marathi teacher in my school. He became a big influence in a way that I had written an essay in the school, as we all do, and so he liked that essay, and he so much so that he read it out to the entire class. And after the class was over, he said, "That was very well written. Have you read Durga Bhagavat's Rutu Chakra?" I said, "No, that's not in the book." So he smiled and he said, "There is so much more which is not in the book, in our Pathya Pustak, as we call it, school syllabus." He said, "Go and read that book, which is in the library, and then after you have read it, we'll discuss it." That was the first exposure to even a thought that the study is not only to score marks or to be successful in the examination. It is much beyond that, and one can go on doing that without being stuck by the syllabus. And so that was another influence which I distinctly remember. And then there was one more influence in the field of visual arts. My art teacher, Sinnarkar, his name was, we in the school, we were given what was called object drawing. Put a flower, a vase, and then you were supposed to paint all that. I did all that, and I was very proud that what I had done was, according to me, very good, great, fascinating, etc., etc. He looked at that and he said he had put a jaswand flower. What is that called in English?
Commandment.
So that flower, and along with that flower, there were two leaves of that flower. Now he said, "Have you ever touched that leaf? That texture of that leaf is so coarse and kharkharit, as we call it in Marathi." He said, "What you have done is very gulgulit, smooth, and now to understand the texture visually and portray it visually properly." And then he showed how to do all that. Now that was the first influence which stuck with me, where it is not only the representation of what you see as you see and best way to draw that. There is so much beyond that. There is a form, there is a line, there is a texture, which all these components lead to a visual experience. So these were the earlier experiences before I joined JJ. Then the JJ School of Art, of course, opened up a completely new world to me. But we'll talk about that later.
Okay. In fact, when you read the book, there is one incident, one interaction between Amolji and Asrani. Please do read that. I won't tell you what it is, but his moral standing and ethics in terms of the reply he gave to us, Rani. So that is something must have come from some family values, things like that. But you can read it. Now, Amolji, you are an atheist and don't believe in predestined events. Still, you have said that 4 happy accidents have shaped your life. And I'll read 4 lines or 6 lines from his book. I view these 4 unseen incidents as accidental turning points which have transformed my life, leaving an indelible mark on my existence forever. The first of the 4 serendipitous accidents led me to discover the field of visual arts. The second one thrust me into world of theater and cinema. The third empowered me to take the director's chair. And the fourth brought an unprecedented 25-year streak of peace and happiness. When we go to Instagram, we find so many people will help you finding your purpose and things like that. Get your direction in life, set your goals, achieve them. And here we find Amolji saying that everything in my life were happy accidents. A little difficult to digest, Amolji. Can you just elaborate on that?
No, I don't think it should be difficult to digest because, as I have repeatedly said, both of us are atheists. When I say atheist, it is a very simple thing, not believing in destiny or luck or fortune, because we find that by doing so, we find an easy escape to blame someone else. कि ये तो होना ही था, मेरी जिंदगी में ये नहीं हुआ, because मेरे नसीब में ही नहीं लिखा था. By doing that, we refuse to accept our own shortcomings or our own mistakes, our own failures. So we don't believe in any such fortune. So I even try to avoid the word unfortunately. But that's where I come from. And therefore what you find unbelievable are all those accidents. They were not planned. Not only not planned, I had never ever thought of being there. JJ School of Art also, I must say that when I passed my matriculation, that was called matric at that time, and it hadn't become SSC by then. After matriculation, I passed out in a first class with having scored good marks in all subjects. So the choice as per that time was I should choose, having secured first class, I should choose science. Or the second option at that time was arts. And the third option, surprisingly, was commerce. But these were the only 3 disciplines which were offered to us at that time. That I chose not to choose any of that and to go to JJ School of Art and become an artist, a painter, qualified painter, was something which was also an accident, a very happy accident. And then the subsequent accidents, and the last one, which probably you want me to elaborate on, was my falling in love with Sandhya. And there is a very interesting, so I won't go into the details, you must read that. Our very first meeting, it's written in quite a few details. And after you read that, you will also agree with me that it must have been an accident. Otherwise, the whole journey, which happened for so many years till now, and a very happy journey, wouldn't have happened if it was not an accident.
So Sandhya ji was the fourth accident that happened, giving 25 years of bliss, and she's sitting next to him. So the next question is to Sandhya ji. Sandhya ji, you are a lawyer by training, and you practice law in New York for about 10 years. You have contributed as a screenplay writer, director, costumes, set design, artistic curator. Coming from a law background, how did you manage all this?
Generally, law is considered as some drab subject, which is not. It's fascinating. It's most creative. Unless you are in sort of a tax lawyer where, you haven't done this and there is a clear pigeonhole and you try to, put that offense or misdeed or misdemeanor in that hole. Law is fascinating. It's all interpretation. And that too, my specialization has been in the civil rights and constitutional law. So where people accept that there is a rule, this is the rule, and I have to follow it, we go beyond the rule and say this rule itself is wrong and why it is wrong and that it should be quashed. So that creative aspect, and I mean, if you are interested in philosophy, music, all kinds of different subjects and disciplines, I think it's much more kind of interactive pursuit in your profession. So it always is wonderful to have that. Having said that, I used to write as a college student also. I used to write. And I used to write plays, then stories, and then articles on various topics, journalistic articles. But then, in Gulzarji's terms, it says, "Beech mein amavas aayi." So 10 years of my New York practice was literally, I was a robo and a machine, doing nothing but law, which I loved, and minting money, nothing else. So at one point I decided, no, I don't want to be in this rut, and I want to go back. And I want to do a meaningful life, which will go beyond law also. And that's how I came back. And all through, I was writing. But specifically screenplay writing, the encouragement was completely, and the initiation was completely given by Amolji. I wrote my first film called Anahat, which was based on Surya ki Antim Kiran se Surya ki Pehli Kiran Tak. This was a play written by Surendra Verma, and Amolji mentioned, why don't we make a film on that? And that was my first screenplay. After that, I wrote Paheli. So this is how I think. I wanted to do creative in the creative field, wanted to work in that, but I realized that law and creative field, time-wise, I cannot really do justice to either. So then we decided, I took a sabbatical, which was supposed to be 10 years, contract labor, with him. But it went on for 15 years, and after that, I'm back as an arbitrator. I do law now. But in between these 15 years, I worked with him in many capacities. And I don't see this as law and creative field as mutually exclusive. It's much more complementary, and it's been fun.
What Sandhya mentioned in law, I think the common link between our thinking and our uh, creative pursuits was the interpretation. It is the interpreting the text, given text. Particularly in theatre, playwright writes a play interpreting the same lines in a totally different way without changing a comma or a full stop was something I was privileged. That's how I grew up in theatre. And these different interpretations of the same text was something she, by her training also, uh, decoding the law, having a different interpretation of the same law, and then arguing for it was one of the common links which brought us even together.